NATO has begun deploying surface-to-air missiles on Turkey's border with Syria. The alliance approved the reinforcements last month after Ankara requested support. NATO claims the move is to help defend its member from the conflict in Syria. Well, live now to political analyst Patrick Henningsen joins me from Dubai. Well, Patriot missiles are mainly defensive weapons, so is their deployment really a big deal here?
The Patriot missiles that they're deploying right now in Turkey have nothing to do with any threat from Syria. I believe that these missile batteries are being parked in Turkish territory to prepare for the possibility of a NATO airstrike further down the timeline. So anyone with any military knowledge or any geopolitical knowledge knows that Syria is absolutely zero military threat to Turkey, and they have no motivation to attack them at all.
And yet Turkey has already fallen victim to attacks from Syria, hasn't it? So it does have a right to defend itself, doesn't it?
Well, the attacks Turkey claimed, or that the Western media claimed to have occurred against Turkey, were in fact mostly baiting exercises. Because the Free Syrian Army and the sort of rebel mercenary groups running across the Syrian border into Turkey for refuge when they're being chased by the Syrian security forces. And so they're using it as a sort of safe haven. And unfortunately, there are people, in parts of the government in Turkey that are facilitating this.
But Patrick, if Assad does go, will Turkey then really be vulnerable from the fallout of what could be a failed state?
Well, it really all depends, Bill, on which matter of strategy the West choose. Right now, option one has failed. They tried to do a Libyan-style regime change by getting some foreign fighters and paying people, then having no-fly zone. That no-fly zone is not going to happen. Benghazi Gate was a game changer as far as American foreign policy goes, because it's put a spotlight on what happened in Libya, and the last thing that Washington or London want to do is to have the public or the media, for that matter, pry further into what happened in Libya, because it's going to see an exact carbon copy, an operation in Syria. Now, Assad is doing very well holding off these mercenary armies, but time will tell. It's going to be a long, drawn-out conflict.
And Moscow said that the deployment of these missiles near Syria's border will only build tension in the region. Do you agree with that? And if so, in what way could it do that?
Well, what it is, it's power posturing, and it's sending a message to the government in Syria that NATO is making plans. Whether they push the button or not is another matter. But what I think that the Western states can't go in on a legitimate basis. So one of their second option is to gin up a chemical weapons situation, and they've done that in the past on many continents with many invasions. The other option that the West has is to drag a smaller state into the conflict and use that as a justification for an airstrike by NATO. I'm talking about dragging in Lebanon or perhaps Israel to the south. That would give NATO the justification to move in and claim it's a regional conflict that needs to be contained.
And if NATO did move in, would that then be the end? Because the UN says that more than 60,000 people have been killed since this conflict started. If NATO does move in, will that be the end of all the deaths and the violence, and we see some stability come to Syria?
No, I believe if NATO comes in, it's going to be the beginning of the second stage of violence. Just look at Libya, Bill, what happened after this so-called peace came to Libya. What you had is this sort of marauding factions that were, many of them were hired guns, going around killing Gaddafi supporters. So expect the jihadists in Syria to do the same. They're going to exact revenge. Right now, we've got reports out of places like Aleppo, where the rebels are using this conflict as an excuse to steal property, to steal business. They're running black markets across the country, and there are people getting very wealthy off this conflict. So it's a criminal gangster's paradise right now in Syria, and that's down to mainly down to the West's and the Gulf states' support of the really violent guerrilla jihadist factions that are trying to exact regime change in the absence of a NATO airstrike.
Patrick, thanks for your thoughts on this. Political analyst Patrick Henningsen joining me live there from Dubai.